What if blaming the world for your problems is the very thing that's keeping you stuck in them? What if the more you point outward, the further you move from your own power? The answer to that may be uncomfortable, but incredibly liberating, and we'll uncover it together by the end of this video. It's easy to blame. Blame is simple. It requires no discipline, no reflection, no responsibility, just a finger pointed somewhere else. We blame the economy, the government, the boss, the parents, the weather, the algorithm. We say we're unlucky, that we were born in the wrong place, at the wrong time, surrounded by the wrong people. And yes, life can be unfair, terribly unfair, but the Stoics didn't concern themselves with fairness. They concerned themselves with focus. And to a Stoic, your power begins exactly where your blame ends. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Who did this to me?" They ask, "How can I respond to this with strength?" That shift changes everything. Because the more you blame, the more you give your power away. And when you live in blame, you live in reaction. Your mood, your goals, your peace, they all become dependent on forces outside of your control. But the Stoic mind is built on what is in your control: your thoughts, your choices, your responses, your focus. Everything else is background noise. We blame because it protects our ego. It shields us from the uncomfortable truth that sometimes we are the ones holding ourselves back. That maybe it's not the world, it's our habits, our fear of change, our need to be right, our unwillingness to confront what isn't working. But here's what the Stoics understood: you cannot grow and blame at the same time. Growth requires ownership, and ownership requires silence. The kind of inner stillness where excuses die and responsibility is born. Blame is also seductive. It gathers attention. It makes us feel seen in our suffering. But it also keeps us repeating the same cycles. If every setback is someone else's fault, then there's nothing for you to improve, nothing to fix within, nothing to refine. You just wait for the world to change, for people to treat you better, for luck to finally show up. But that waiting room is where potential goes to die. The Stoic doesn't wait. The Stoic acts, not impulsively, but deliberately, not out of rage, but from reason, because they understand that the world is unpredictable, but their character doesn't have to be. The habit of blame usually begins in subtle ways. We blame traffic for being late, instead of our lack of planning. We blame distractions for our low productivity, instead of our inability to say no. We blame a toxic person for our stress, instead of setting boundaries. We blame the algorithm for our lack of progress, instead of improving our content, our message, our strategy. Each time we do this, we reinforce a narrative of powerlessness. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. It teaches you to reclaim your power in the most radical way possible, by taking full ownership of how you move through the world. That doesn't mean ignoring injustice or pretending pain doesn't exist. It means refusing to let those things define your response. The Stoics were not passive. They were warriors of the mind. They faced pain, exile, betrayal, and death, but they faced it with courage and clarity because they knew that strength isn't found in what happens to you. It's found in how you choose to face it. Sometimes, blaming others is just a distraction from the silence we're avoiding. Because in silence, we're forced to confront our own role in the outcome. And that can hurt. But it's also where transformation begins. In silence, you see the patterns you've justified, the habits you've protected, the lies you've told yourself to stay comfortable. And when you finally stop speaking about what others have done, you can begin doing what you must. You move from commentary to command, from complaint to clarity. You cannot control how people treat you. You cannot control what the market does. You cannot control whether the world is fair, but you can control what you give your energy to. You can control what thoughts you feed, what narratives you tell, and what standards you live by. That is not just Stoicism, that is freedom. Real, grounded, unshakable freedom. The Stoic doesn't waste time shouting at the rain. They prepare for the storm. They don't curse the wind, they adjust their sails. They don't dwell on injustice, they respond with virtue, because they know that energy is precious, and wherever you put your focus, your life follows. If you focus on what's wrong, your mind will become a graveyard of resentment. If you focus on what you can build, even in broken conditions, your life becomes a monument to resilience. Ask yourself this: what would happen if, for the next 30 days, you refused to blame anyone or anything? No matter what went wrong, you looked inward first, not to punish yourself, but to understand. Not to feel guilt, but to find power. Imagine how sharp your mind would become, how intentional your actions would be, how clear your path would feel. Because in that state, you're no longer at the mercy of the external. You've returned to the internal, the only place where change actually happens. Now, let's come back to the question that opened this video. What if blaming the world for your problems is the very thing that's keeping you stuck in them? Here's the answer: it is. Blame is the illusion of movement. It makes noise but goes nowhere. It tricks you into thinking you're processing, but you're only deflecting. Real movement happens in silence, in responsibility, in the decision to own what you can, release what you can't, and live with wisdom in between. The Stoic doesn't need someone else to lose for them to win. They don't need circumstances to be perfect to act with purpose. And they don't need the world to change before they do. They rise, not by resisting what is, but by mastering how they respond to it. And that is where their true power lives. So the next time you feel the urge to blame, pause. Go silent. Ask yourself, is this blame a shield, or is it a mirror? Am I hiding, or am I ready to grow? And in that silence, you may find a voice that doesn't blame, doesn't beg, doesn't shout. It simply says, let's begin again. Stronger, clearer, and finally free.